In this video, you'll learn more about the different types of microphones, their different qualities, and where you might use them appropriately. So I'll break this video into the 3 types. We'll also talk about polar patterns and connections. Also throughout, we'll talk about some general applications of where you might use a certain type. But as always, you should do your own research and understand your microphone and the situation that you're putting it in to find the best fit, and also experiment to find the best fit. The 3 main types of microphones are condenser, dynamic, and ribbon. Condenser microphones are found in most digital devices, and they all require phantom power, although if there's a condenser mic in your phone or your computer or a USB device, it's already getting its power from USB. Condenser microphones are also very versatile. So there's 2 basic types, a small diaphragm and large diaphragm. Small diaphragm are often used as overheads, and large diaphragm mics are often used as vocal mics. So you can see here what many small diaphragm mics look like. Often they're called pencil mics. One advantage of small diaphragm condenser mics is that they can handle high SPL, or a high sound pressure level, basically really loud sounds. They also have a good high frequency response. So you'll often see these used as drum overheads because drums are really loud. These mics can handle really loud signals, and they also pick up high frequencies really well. Here you can see just one example of a large diaphragm condenser mic. These tend to have better bass response, be very sensitive, and often they're used for vocals. They don't have to be used for vocals, but often they are. It's always very helpful to hear the difference between different types of microphones. So what you're gonna hear now is the same recording from the same take on the same instrument from the same position in the room. The first recording example was recorded with 2 small diaphragm condenser mics, and the second recording used large diaphragm condenser mics. Listen carefully and see if you can hear the difference, especially in the lower frequency sounds. You'll definitely want to listen on headphones or speakers to be able to hear the difference better. Here's the recording using small diaphragm mics. And here's the recording using large diaphragm mics. Dynamic microphones are also very versatile. They're great for live performance. They're generally very rugged and durable. They don't have to be used for drums again, but they can be, and they often are. Ribbon microphones are a little bit less popular. Technically, they're a type of dynamic, but really they're in a category of their own. They're popular when you're looking for a vintage sound. They tend to have a darker tone, and they tend to be more difficult to work with, although the newer ribbon mics tend to be easier to work with. Just as important as the type of microphone, sometimes more important, is the polar pattern of each mic. So any microphone is going to fall into one of those 3 categories and have a polar pattern. We'll look at a couple different polar patterns here, including cardioid, hypercardioid, figure 8, omnidirectional, and some hybrid types. So here are 3 polar patterns. You can see on the left is the cardioid, which it gets its name because it kind of looks like a heart or an upside down heart. And then in the middle is figure 8, and on the far right is omni. So what you see with this dark black line, that's showing you the pattern, meaning if I point a mic in a certain direction, if my mic is at the center of that circle, and I point it forward or up, that dark black line is gonna show me the space that the microphone will pick up the sound in. So on a cardioid, it's mostly gonna pick it up in one direction. You'll notice on the bottom or behind that microphone, that sound is not really picked up. It's not within that dark black line. Then in the center, we can see a figure 8 mic, and you can see it picks up sound in front of it and behind it. And the omni picks up sound in all directions equally. So here you can see many different types of polar patterns. So the cardioid is maybe the most common. It's unidirectional, meaning it points in a certain direction, and it rejects sounds from the sides and from the back especially. So this is great if you want to point a microphone at a particular instrument, but not pick up other instruments in the room or on the stage. A hypercardioid is even more like this. It has a more narrow range, has more off-axis rejection, which basically means it picks up less sound from the side, but they tend to be more expensive. Shotgun mic is the most precise, the most focused. It's often used in film and TV, and it shouldn't be confused with the pencil mic. Just because a mic is skinny and points in a certain direction doesn't necessarily mean it's a shotgun mic. A figure 8, also called a bidirectional mic, has a pattern that looks like this, and it tends to be the most natural sound. Our ears actually work in a figure 8 pattern, and figure 8 polar pattern mics have a little bit of a more specific use case. And finally, a microphone that has an omnidirectional polar pattern picks up sound from all directions. Most lavalier or clip-on mics are omni, and these have a natural open sound because they're picking up sound from all around it. So I hesitate to even talk about when to use each because there are many different factors, and in each case, you should consider the factors and then decide which microphone should be best. You shouldn't just say, oh, I'm recording this instrument, so I'll use this type of microphone. A great audio engineer will consider several different things and maybe even experiment with different mics and placements in order to pick the right microphone for the job. But while you're learning, I'll try to help you break it down what you might consider and how to find the best mic for the job. So you'll want to consider if it's a live situation or in the studio. A live situation tends to be a little bit more chaotic, it tends to be outside, it tends to be louder, whereas in the studio you have more control and you can choose different mics and generally you have more control of the situation. You also want to consider what is the desired sound. If you want to have a really bright, brilliant sound, you might use a certain type of microphone. Conversely, if you want a darker, more mellow sound, you might choose a different microphone. And you also might choose a different mic depending on the instrument that you're recording. This can be dependent on the tone of the instrument, the shape of it, or even especially the volume. Make sure you think about all these different things we're talking about when you choose what the best microphone is for your situation. So often, a dynamic mic, usually a cardioid, is used in a live situation, either for vocals or instruments. Small diaphragm condenser mics are often used as overheads, maybe over drums or in a room, sometimes as a pair, sometimes as just one. Large diaphragm condenser mics are often used for studio vocals, but they could be used to record any instrument, and you can either use one at a time or you can set up two identical ones, one on the left and one on the right, to create a stereo image and a stereo sound. Ribbon mics are often used if you want to get a certain vintage sound, and especially on certain guitar amps and combinations, ribbon mics can sound really nice. A shotgun mic is often used for film and TV, where you really want to be super specific with what sound is picked up and what sound is not picked up. An omnidirectional lavalier mic or clip-on mic is also often used in film and TV because it provides a natural sound, but you can have it close to that person's voice. And finally, we'll talk briefly about mic connections. On the top, you can see an XLR connection with those 3 holes or 3 pins. You would plug one end into the microphone and the other end into your interface or your mixer. Keep in mind that phantom power can be transmitted via an XLR. That's how it usually is transmitted. And if you're using a USB microphone, you'll have some connection that looks like this. Keep in mind that USB microphones can be condensers or dynamics. Most of them are condenser microphones, and almost all USB microphones provide phantom power and have an analog to digital interface, so you don't need any kind of interface or mixer or phantom power to be able to use a USB microphone. Although we've covered quite a bit of information in this video, this is really just an introduction, and I'd encourage you to do your own research. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.